Hello and welcome to the T3 Handicapping YouTube channel. I am Chris from T3 Handicapping, and I am here to break down both the Holy Bull and the Withers stakes races from Gulfstream Park and Aqueduct. We're going to do both cards in their entirety in kind of a lightning round fashion. So this one's probably going to be a little bit longer. Let's go ahead and jump right into things. Thank you for joining us here today. First of all, if you want to get caught up with us, you can always do so at our website, t3handicapping.weebly.com. You can currently purchase daily access to our members portal, which gets you all tracks and the race summaries that you'll see here in this video. That is closing up on 2/8/22, and then just daily stuff will be available then, but you can also purchase our software so you can actually recreate all of our rankings with your very own Data BrizNet files. You can also find us right here on YouTube. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Please feel free to comment down below with any of your takes on either the Gulfstream or Aqueduct card for Saturday. Or maybe if you even have something about the Robert B. Lewis, which is coming up Sunday at Santa Anita. You can also find us on Facebook, T3 Handicapping Horse Racing. I post a lot of stuff in there, a lot of member exclusive things there, so you definitely want to go and become a part of that page as well. And then you can find us on Twitter at Handicapping T3. So without further ado, we've got a lot of races to cover tonight, so we're going to jump right into things here. We're going to start off at the Big A and just look at Aqueduct and their card. Now, Aqueduct was sloppy on Friday, so I'm not exactly sure what the track condition is for Sunday, but given the cold, it's probably going to be good, maybe still a little bit sloppy depending on what they get. And so with that, I'm not sure if it's going to play exactly the way that it has been playing, but if you've been playing Aqueduct at all this winter, you know that inside speed is golden on most days. I know they had a couple goofy results on Friday. We'll try and hit some of that rail bias and some of that speed bias a little bit on Saturday. But as always, just be aware of what's going on in the track because sometimes that weather can really affect it. A couple things that I want to just point out here as we're jumping through things. I put a key up here. I went through and actually labeled some other pieces within the race. So if you see an F like Menley here, that's a first timer. So we don't have any data on that one. These are other ratings that you can find in our software. If you purchase it, B stands for benchmark speed figure. If a horse has earned a benchmark speed figure, they have a B. And then plus means that they're the top. So they would have the top number if they're a B plus. S is for our split 100s. That's a class. That's a class and speed hybrid, and that you will also see sometimes with a plus or a minus or things like that. S plus means that they're the top or right near the top. And then the question mark means that they do have data. They do have a number that puts them in the mix for either a benchmark or a split 100, but they just don't have it on like the right surface, or maybe it's been too far out and so that doesn't qualify. So anyway, jumping in here to the first race, we've got a class level 15. If you're new to the channel, the higher the number, the worse the horses are. They're going 7 furlongs on the dirt, and it projects to be a slow pace, mostly because we've got a lot of first-time starters. Now, one thing that I do know is I know that the pace is likely to come from the 2 or the 5, and they look like they're going to be pretty well clear. I do also have some interest in the first-time starter as well, and so I ended up going 2, 3, 5 on my A line. I was a little interested in this firster here, Tiffany Tail, at 8 to 1 on the morning line, and David Aragon is usually pretty good with those morning lines, but I think has a good rating and could project to score very well. You can see over here we have the grid, pretty much jives with that. The only one I kind of left off was Tonight We Love, but as you can see, a split 100 and towards the lower end, I don't really see that one as being a big factor. So I'm fine going 2, 3, 5, and 7. To me, that's going to be good enough to get out of there, but a heavy preference to the 2, who is both the top benchmark and split horse, and the 5, who ranks up there in both categories as well. Race number 2 from Aqueduct. This is going 7 furlongs on the dirt, and this is a class level 4, so a much better group of horses here. And for me, this comes down to 2 horses at the top of the market. I'm not entirely sold on Breadman. Breadman likes to sit off things a little bit and likes to come home late. And I don't think that's going to work here. Now, if the track is playing drastically different, maybe that will work, but it's going to be too early in the card to make any distinction on that. And so I'm going to go with 2 horses just outside. I'm going to actually fade the favorite here. And I'm going to play Fenway, who looks to get a good draw or a good rail run here, and should be forwardly placed. And then I also have Tapizarens, which is my preferred part of the entry. Great Workout is okay. I don't really prefer that one. You can see I did not list the one anywhere on my board. I would be less inclined if the 1A scratches out. I might move the 7 up and I might move the 1 in here, but I'm not 100% sure. I think I would be more inclined to even look at somebody like the 4 potentially in that situation. So I like the 1A. I'm not a huge fan of the 1, and that means I'm going to lose value on the 1A, but nevertheless, I think that's going to be the heavier bet part of the entry anyway. Moving on, 7 furlongs on the dirt, class level 2. So these are really, really good horses. And that should not come as any surprise, as this is one of our stakes races on the card. And you can see we have a heavy, heavy favorite in Happy Medium. Happy Medium looks like the horse to beat, and I'm not going to try. This is one where I think you survive in verticals and just or in horizontals, I apologize, and move on. The only thing that I thought was interesting is when we brought class into the mix, you can see that maybe there's a little vulnerability, and that's where I might be looking to someone like Hopeful Treasure. I think if Happy Medium for some reason does not show up, I think we look for Hopeful Treasure to get the job done. All right, race number 4. We've got 8 furlongs on the dirt, class level 17. So significantly worse horses here than what we just witnessed in the last race. And so with that, we're going to have a little bit more variability probably in their ability levels and how the race potentially shakes out. Now, as I'm going through this and as I'm taking another look through, one concern is this Elv and Ticatarto, who shows up everywhere on this board and I did not use. I think that's one that I would probably want to include. I think I got scared off mostly because of the closing aspect of it, but that one does really look. It has the best speed figures, is close in pace, and should have a good enough race flow. So I think I would put that one on the B line as well, just to have it on side. But I really do think that most of this race is going to go through the 2, the 5, and I kind of like the 8. Question My Sanity as sort of a sneaky long shot that doesn't really have a lot on paper yet, but could really take a step forward. You can see, despite not really having anything defined, really stacks up well against this group, and right here with the form and its solid ability rating, not at the top, but pretty close to the top. I think at 15 to 1, that's a fair price in a race where that one could really step up. Hopefully, shows a little bit of early speed. Moving on to race number 5, we've got class level 11, 8 furlongs on the dirt, moderate pace here. And with that, I'm looking for horses ideally that are going to be forward. The problem is I really like Twisted Tom in this spot. I just think Twisted Tom, if this were a fair racetrack, would stand over this field. This racetrack is not fair or has not been fair. With that being said, I think if anybody's going to beat him, it's going to be Pontico or Pontantico. That one is going to be sitting just off the pace, and I think at 6 to 1 is a fair price. Roundabout, I do think is a deserving favorite, and I think is a very likely horse to be in contention here. I have on the B line. I also like Playwright. This is one I've been on for a number of years. Has been on this New York winter circuit. I mean, has been on the New York circuit in general, but always seems to shine during the winter months. And I've cashed a few tickets, so I always find it hard to separate myself from the sentimental value there. And then another one kind of in that same category is Flowers for Lisa. Been in the New York circuit here for quite some time. Is going to be a front runner, and I thought that's something to be aware of. If the track is, by race 5, we should have an idea if that same rail front speed is holding. And one thing that I would watch if you haven't done a lot with Aqueduct this winter is I would make sure that you're watching for 2 things. Number 1 is speed holding, and then number 2, where is the speed holding? It's typically been holding on the rail and not as much on the outside, but as these tracks are draining, sometimes you can see that almost inverted, where your speed is going to hold, but only if you flop way out and stay off the rail. So just be aware of that as you're looking. You're looking for both a speed or closer bias, but you're also looking for an inside-outside bias as well. This next race number 6, 6.5 furlongs on the dirt, we've got a class level 7. And so, with that, I'm looking here. You can see we've got a really wide open top end. There's not a lot of consistency here in the top, but I do like my top two in the algorithm. That's Prisoner and Swinton. The only concern is if we get to this point in the day and speed isn't holding, horses from off the pace are doing more running, then that's when I'm going to want to be looking at a horse like number two, Forest Spirit. But also Taco Bean is another interesting one at a huge price that I think could sit off and maybe just get the best of race flow at the end. I did also have a little interest in El Mayor. You can see ranks pretty well in the benchmark speed figure. And at 8 to 1, again though, you've got a forwardly placed horse. The thing I'm thinking here is at 8 to 1, this is the longest shot of the kind of get out in front types, and sometimes that can cause a horse to just get pushed on and scrubbed on all the way to the front and just extend a big lead that nobody can catch up to, especially if the track is playing the way it has. So that's kind of an interesting long shot that I have there. I know at the top of the market right now, I'm pretty chalky, but I think there are some alternatives within that. And the question for you will be, where are the favorites that you can fade? Where are places that you can get around those favorites? Moving on to race number 7. This is a class level 4, going 8 furlongs on the dirt. And actually, I think a fairly wide open race here, too. I landed on the top 3 here of Dust Devil, 3 Jokers, who's the split 100, and No Burn, who's also split 100. But you can see from a class perspective, a lot of these horses have been running really, really good races. I mean, our top class horse is the number 1 starting over, and I don't even have that one on my ticket. So, there's a lot going on here, and a lot of possibilities to win, and that's why your favorite right now is sitting in 3 Jokers at 3 to 1. I think that's a respectable favorite. I think that's probably the right place for favoritism to land. I do like American Gentleman as a little bit of a long shot who could just kind of sit off that early pace. And maybe is able to just kick on for that last little bit at the end. But again, that one is a cut below for me, the 4, 5, and 6. Moving on to race number 8, class level 4, 9 furlongs on the dirt. And here we've got our road to the Kentucky Derby. We'll go over this one a little bit more in depth, just to give you a little bit more of an idea of what to do here in the Withers. So you have Constitutional Lawyer, who for us gets the benchmark speed figure, is the top number there, and in fact the only one who has exceeded that threshold. Now, when you put it into the split 100 algorithm, that doesn't kick out quite as well. But we can see here, I mean, from a speed figure standpoint, I have this one rated out as the top, as I know a lot of the commercial makers do as well. Stamina, record at the distance, we've got a lot of them that have won all the races at this distance. In terms of early pace, I think this one's going to be present. Race flow, this one's slightly better than Courvoisier, but Courvoisier is, I think, another really interesting runner. Sort of my opinion here in this race, and the one thing that I'm hesitant on is I don't know that early voting gets the lead. And to me, that's the concern with that one, and that's why I dropped that one to the B line, and I'm not really as interested in that one as I am in using Constitutional Lawyer and Courvoisier. Now, the horse that I am a little bit more interested in at a price, and one of the things I found in watching Derby preps is we all fall in love with our Derby horse early, and the problem with that is you get dug in. You see one good performance, and then you think that automatically indicates good performance, good performance, good performance, Derby victory. And we've seen year in and year out that Derby horses progress, and it's usually the hot name 2 weeks before the Derby that has the best chance, because you see these precocious 2-year-olds that come out and they just never fire again. And so a lot of times, especially with these early in the year ones, the Withers, the Robert B. Lewis, the ones that we just had or were supposed to have at Oaklawn, those types of races, the Holy Bull, which we're going to go over in just a little bit here, those races, I think you tend to see more big sort of upsets as horses are starting to get better and starting to progress. You can see some under the radar types, and that's why I'm going to be keyed in here, especially if we're starting to see some off the pace runners be successful. I'm going to go with Unbridled Bomber as sort of my long shot sneaky play, and one I think you're going to want to sneak into some of your exotics at least. If not, maybe having a couple spots on the win ticket. I also think Gilded Age could be an interesting one as well, and you can see a couple of fours showing up on our grid, on our matrix. That's something that you could look at as well. But for me, it's going to be Unbridled Bomber. Even though the horse rates out as an F, these are horses with very limited data and that can take big strides forward, and that's just kind of one that's caught my eye. Moving on then, race number 9. We're going to close it out with race number 9 at Aqueduct. Is class level 11. Distance is 7 furlongs. We're on the dirt. And this is a really kind of goofy race. I ended up going with the 6, 5, and 10. The 10 horse, you can see, ranks, fairly well on a lot of these categories. Comes out as our 5th best horse, which is typically just outside of our strongest rankings, but does have a B plus S plus, which usually for me upgrades horses just a little bit. Double Maker's an unknown at 12-1. I love the price. Curlin's Wisdom, I think, is a front runner at 5-1, and if you can get a horse to the front on the Aqueduct main track in the winter, you're probably in pretty good shape. Thrill of It's an interesting one, I think, at 10-1, going to sit off the pace, especially if the front end is getting really tiring for horses. And I think Raw Courage is actually in with a shot as well at another square price of 10-1. So we saw it on Friday. If you can get around some favorites, you can have some astronomical prices, and I think there's going to be some opportunities for you to do so at Aqueduct on Saturday. Now let's turn our attention to the Holy Bull. And again, if you are new to the channel or if you just haven't done it yet, please go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. That way you get notified whenever we do these videos. They're usually for weekend cards, but that way you're always getting notified when we go live or when we have new video content posted. So again, like and subscribe. And if you have any comments or selections that you'd like to make for any of these Derby prep races or any of the races on Saturday, please just go ahead and comment down below. We're going to move on here to the Holy Bull card now. This one's a little bit more expansive. Again, you can see sort of those ratings and how they come together. We're going to start off with a real low-level race. Class level 26, going 5.5 furlongs on the dirt. And I'll be honest, things have been a little topsy-turvy for me at Gulfstream. I've just been in and out a little bit. Picks have been okay, but just choosing to bet the wrong horses, and that's been frustrating. But we're going to get back on track. Saturdays do tend to be my best day there. I like for the A line, I like the 5 and the 10, Good Trouble and Flora de Plata. I'm not really breaking any news as they are the top 2 on the board. I also think the 1 and the 11 present some interesting price options. One is an unknown, and the other one is one that's just going to try and get to the front. And from the inside on the dirt, I don't think that's ever a bad thing. When I see a front runner on the dirt, on the inside, especially in a one-turn race at Gulfstream Park, I think you have to respect it. And so I'm going to try and get that one home, especially without a lot of other confirmed speeds in the race. That's how I see race number 1. Race number 2 is a class level 10, going 8.32, so a mile and 40, I believe, on the all-weather track. We've actually been doing fairly well on the all-weather, which has been kind of nice because it's not a surface that I typically consider myself super confident on, but our numbers tend to be pretty strong there. So in this one, you can see I went with the 2, 3, 4. Again, I'm not breaking any news here. You've got our benchmark speed figure, and then 2 others that are competitive in speed figures, and then you have the number 3, which is our S plus horse, the split 100 horse, and you've got 3, I think, really solid contenders in those spots. The one that I was kind of interested in was Birdman Richie. Birdman Richie is going to be drawn to the 7 post, and one of the things that I've really noticed on the Tapeta surface is, and it's starting to get a little bit better, but for a while you did not want to be down on the inside. About the first 3 paths were really tough to get home. So I think like the 5 and the 7, if that persists, could be very interesting. I chose to use the 7 on my B line. I did not use the 5, but I do think the 5 is interesting as well. This next race, race number 3, is a class level 14, going 6 furlongs on the dirt, no pace. That mostly has to do with the fact that there's just not that much experience in this race. I ended up, I struggled. I went back and forth. I didn't really know what to do. There was insufficient data to really do any of our benchmark speed figures because we just don't have that many horses that have run. Of the ones that have already tried, my favorite one from the group was the number 2 horse at Super Cito, and that one just has the best numbers. I had that one up on my A line. Um, the 1 and the 4 to me, based on the morning line prices, seem to be the first time starters that you want to have. I will be watching the board to see if that persists. Now, one thing that I do think is interesting is this other horse, the number 5, Slightly Frosted, is 30 to 1. Now gets the S plus maybe. It's in the wrong surface, which is why that doesn't count. But the interesting thing is I think experience is so valuable in these maiden races. At 30 to 1, as one of 2 horses with experience, I think this is one that has a chance to be a real big upsetter and could spring an early price in that pick 5. So I wouldn't entirely leave that 5 off your tickets. Experience matters. Race number 4, we're going class level 11, 8 furlongs on the inner turf course there. So the I stands for inner or turf, and then the T actually stands for Tapeta, the all-weather surface. Um, with that, I kind of went a little bit crazy in this race. I think this one is ripe for an upset. I like Caribbean Gold. I like the Great Oz, and I like Windy City Red. Those are kind of my top 3 selections. They're all going to be forwardly placed. We saw a bunch of times on the Friday card that being forwardly placed on the turf, they're setting almost Naira-like fractions on the turf course at Gulfstream, getting away with opening quarters in 25 and some, and then they're wheeling the half in 49 and change. I mean, they're just poking along, and some of these better horses with great jockeys. I mean, Ortiz and I should say Irad Ortiz and Gaff Leone are sitting 4 or 5 lengths back, trying to make a middle move, trying to get up around the turn, and they're just stalling. They're not getting there. And so I want horses that are going to be close, and I know that the 1, the 8, and the 9 are all going to be there. The 2, Super Fortune, ranks out just fine, is going to be coming from out of it. And again, based on a lot of what I saw on Friday, that's just not the kind of runner that I want. Mamza is another one that's kind of interesting to me. I'm going to get a decent price on that one at 15 to 1. Again, it's going to be forwardly placed, and I just think you're going to want your horse within 2 to 3 lengths of the lead. I think if you're looking for a more favorite type horse or a logical when you're looking for a forwardly placed runner, that's where I might look to somebody like Hard Red Candy. I think that one is probably the top morning line selection that has the best chance to be up there. Not really interested in horses like Al Halal. I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, that one burned me bad, and I think it's just been ingrained in my memory, so I'll never go with that one again. If it hasn't, if that's totally made up and false, then I have just summoned that horse to never make it on my ticket for all eternity for no reason. Moving on to race number 5, class level 7. So this is a low class level. And I wrote that down for a very specific reason. This is going 7 furlongs on the dirt. And you'll see that on my B line. I actually used the number 6, Mr. Bauma. And this horse is at 12 to 1. It's actually the longest shot on the board. And I put it on my B line. I did that because this horse is going to be forward, and I really think being forward matters. Now, pace-wise, I'm not sure if this one's going to be forward. I know that's what it likes to do. I'm not sure if it can get there. To me, this race is 135. But if you're looking for a price, the 6 is kind of somewhat interesting to me. The only thing that made me a little nervous about using that, and the reason I circled it and why it would probably end up on a C line or maybe even off my tickets completely, is the fact that this is a class level 7. So these are better horses. This type of scenario doesn't happen very often amongst better horses. If it were the only speed, I might be singing a different tune, but it's not. There's other confirmed speeds in the race, and that one might struggle, but it's going to be mostly 135 for me. Moving on to race number 6, class level 14, 8.32 on the Tapeta surface. This one I really had a hard time making heads or tails of. I prefer Grand David. I think Grand David's good. He's going to be forwardly placed. I'm not sure that's what you want to be on the Tapeta. Hopefully there's a little bit of rateability and is on the inside. So I've got a ton of red flags on this one. Sir for sure is a 12-1 shot, is going to be closing. I want to see that one a little bit more involved, but against this group, there's not a ton of pace, so that's very possible. Love the fact that the horse is drawn to the outside. I think that's been very helpful on the Tapeta, as I mentioned before. Outside of that, I do think that allegorical and remote are both interesting. Now, part of the reason why I was so inclusive here is I've got a ton of prices. I'm not convinced that the one is anything special, and that's the third choice on the morning line to begin with. So now I'm looking at, okay, who's my next horse? Well, I use the 9. Well, that's 12-1. I've got built-in equity using a 12-1 shot, and so now I'm using 8-1 shots in addition to it, because no matter what I hit there, I've got plenty of spread with the amount of value in each of those horses that I don't have to worry about going 4 deep. Now, beyond that, I have some others that I'm interested in. Dream of Day, I think, is an interesting choice at 6-1. Certainly appears on enough of our categories in the top 5. So that to me is certainly of interest. Little concerned that maybe this is going to be too much of a closing effort for him, but you can see here that based on our numbers, should be forwardly placed, and then race flow looks pretty solid. So I'm okay with that one. I also like Once a Giant and Ankara. Anytime you see a morning line favorite installed at something like 7-2, I think that's just red flag alert that this race could go bonkers in terms of who wins. Now, with that being said, it'll probably end up that we'll have a 4-5 shot enter the gate and we'll win for fun. That just seems how it kind of tends to be, but nevertheless, that's how I see it right now. Moving on to race number 7, class level 7. Again, we're going 8.5 furlongs on the turf. I'm really happy to see that on Holy Bull Day. Gulfstream Park really went back to their bread and butter, and that was that they put a ton of races back on the turf. It's about a 50-50 split between dirt and turf. I think there's only 2 Tapeta races on the entire card, and I think horse players will be happy about that. As we go here, we're looking at our A horses as being Coinage and Royal Spirit. Honestly, I just think these two are just much the best in this field. Now, Grand Sonata's interesting, but I don't love Grand Sonata as the favorite. I just don't. Can Grand Sonata win? Sure. But I think that the 2 and the 6 present a little bit more interesting opportunity. I also like Red Danger. So I would say of the horses that are in the top 4, the one I like the least is Grand Sonata, and that would be the one I'd be most likely to pitch. If I was looking for a price, for me, it's Eldon's Prince, the number 5 horse that really stands out to me as a potential sort of further upsetter. I mean, from the clouds, whereas Royal Spirit and Coinage would be upsetters, but not nearly to the magnitude. I don't really see that number 5 in that last race winning, but certainly would be interesting for some underneath plays. This next one was tough for me. Race number 8, class level 11, going 7 furlongs, and this is on the dirt. And the reason that I struggled with this one in particular is I like Radio Days. I think Radio Days is the best horse in the race, but I'm concerned that this horse likes to come running late, and that's just not something that on the dirt has been all that helpful. In fact, in any of the Gulfstream tracks, coming from way out of it just isn't helpful. Now, this one does have enough tactical speed that it should be up forwardly placed, but then I'm just not sure if it gets that forward placement that it's going to have what it needs to kick home. So I finally just in the end decided to go with best horse. I think this is the best horse, so I'm just going to take it. Outside of that, I kind of like the 4 and the 7. Again, my concern with the 5 is that the 5 isn't going to be at the front. I think the 4, Disco Ebo, is a really interesting one because I think this one's going to be on the lead, and I think there's a possibility that this one gets loose. And if this one gets loose, now we've got something. And at 6-1, we could be making some hay. Number 7, Diamond Wow, going to just sit off the pace and try and come on late. I'm okay with that. Just take over in the later stages of the game. I don't know. We'll see if it works. I did think that Last Leaf is an interesting prospect at 12-1 and definitely is one that I would want on some horizontal tickets and one I would definitely include in my verticals as well. All right, we are going to move on here to race number 9. So we're moving right through. And with race number 9 here, we are looking at class level 6, going 7 furlongs on the dirt. And you might see some old names that you recognize if you've been following this circuit for a while. We've got War Stopper, but more probably well known as horses like Candyman Rocket, Soup and Sandwich. Joe DiBaggio has been really good as of late. Prevalence, Bone Raison is just. I don't think I've ever seen a race where Bone Raison is under 20 to 1 on the morning line. That horse just always seems to be over its head. Um, but anyway, when we look at this race, I actually kind of went off the board a little bit here. I like Joe DiBaggio. That horse has just been a really cool horse and always seems to just outperform himself. Sometimes is heavily favored and seems to run fine, but I love that this horse can sometimes just put up a performance that just gut and heart, and I've enjoyed watching that one run. So sentimentally, I made sure to put that one on my ticket. Coastal Defense is going to be mid pack, which I don't love, but at the same time, I think could be a dangerous player. And I think Warstopper is another interesting one. Just getting out to the front, I don't see a ton of speed, like true blitzing speed to the inside of Warstopper, other than maybe He Hate Me. Nice little XFL reference there. But I don't know that He Hate Me really has what it takes to run this one off his feet. With that, then who is it? I mean, Prevalence is to the outside. Boca Boy, do you really trust Boca Boy to wear down what I think is a legitimate contender? I don't. Number 12, Candyman Rocket, 8 to 1, going to kind of sit second flight. If this one can find some of that old 3-year-old form, this one's maybe got a shot. He Hate Me, I just thought was interesting. In the event that nobody really truly goes, maybe the 3 gets on the front. Anytime I see, speed number, race flow, pace, I think there's always a chance for a crazy setup, but it's going to take not being pressured, and I think that's going to be really tough for that one. Race number 10, class level 11, 8.5 furlongs on the inner turf. I love Opalina here. I just think this one is the best, and you can see didn't really rate out super well on all of our categories. Sometimes you'll see one horse just dominating like all of these. Didn't do that, but you're never going to see that really in turf racing. If you do see it on a turf race, a lot of times it's kind of a false favorite anyway, because the metrics just don't seem to work quite as well on the turf. But I really do think this one's going to sit a tactical trip, is going to stalk, is going to pounce, and is going to take home the cash in this one. Interesting other players, I think, were Ocean Safari, who's my benchmark speed figure horse. Miss You Ella is another one. That one might be sitting a little too deep, but I think could come storming late to get up for something. Running Legacy is one that if the earlier turf races, if horses aren't making up any ground, I'm going to move that one off my ticket completely. Otherwise, I will use that one, but that one will be coming from out of it a little bit. Moving on to race number 11, and this is the big one. This is the Holy Bull, famously won by Tiz the Law back in 2020. 2021, it was a little less productive. But with this one, class level 7, 8.5 furlongs on the dirt, and sometimes you don't make things any more challenging than they are. Simplification, Mo Donegal, 2 of the top 3 horses. Those are the ones I like. Giant Game, I'm a little nervous about the 9 post. Simplification is a horse that wants to go. Giant Game is a horse that wants to go. Simplification draws well inside, and especially at Gulfstream, the inside posts tend to fare better. You've got enough speed to the inside of Giant Game. I think Giant Game is going to at least be in the 2 path going wide, but I think Cajun Magic, who I have on the B line, could also have something to say about that. I think White Abario could potentially have something to say about that. And now all of a sudden you're going to see Giant Game going 4 or 5 wide into the turn, and at Gulfstream, if you get hung wide on the dirt course, you better have much the best horse, and I just don't see Giant Game as that horse. So I'm going to go Simplification is actually my top pick here, but Mo Donegal certainly is another really good gutty horse that could get up for it. All this being said, I will just throw out there that this is Derby prep season, and like I said with the Withers, you can see horses just take huge, massive jumps up, and that's always something to be aware of. We're going to close out the Gulfstream Park card here and our big rundown and analysis with the 12th race from Gulfstream. I kind of like a little bit of an upsetter here. I like Mo Reddy. Mo Reddy is coming from the 12th post, which I don't like. We're on the turf course. These aren't exactly world beaters, but I like this horse. I also like a horse in the 10, Vittori Kin. Now, what I like about Vittori Kin is with plenty of speed out in front, I think Vittori Kin is going to be able to just let everybody break out and drop in underneath and then hopefully work his way up and get into a good spot. Mo Reddy's going to have a little bit more of a challenging trip, but I think Mo Reddy may just be the fastest of the fast in this group, and may be able to get out in front. Now, does the horse need to use so much energy to get there that then the horse has nothing when they kick for home? I don't know. I did think that Graceful Kitten was interesting here. Graceful Kitten doesn't look super good on pace, but does on race flow. Looks super competitive on race flow. And at 20 to 1, you're getting an inside post. So now the horse is really forced to go and get up and get forward. And like I said, that's been really helpful to have in these races. So maybe the horse just gets into it early and is able to hold on all the way around. I like Gemontier at 8 to 1, another one that's going to sit off and pounce, but you can see potentially, if it translates to the turf surface, could have the best split 100 of any of the horses in here. Lavery is another one at 12 to 1. Little nervous about the closing kick. Uncle Curly, I like Uncle Curly. I like the fact that this one is going to sit mid-pack. The problem is, even if this one gets in on scratches, I'm worried about how far out it's going to be. Even if 3 horses scratch out, this horse is going to be sitting in the 9 post. And you know, there's enough speed that if this one drops down to the 9, that could potentially be something that I look at. But it might be tough for this one to work out a trip from all that much farther out. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I think that the horse on paper makes sense. I think that if this horse was breaking from the 7, it would be a much different story, but it's not. So that's what we're playing it. We're playing it as a C. The one horse that I did not use in these picks that I would kind of be a little concerned about is Baru. Baru is just one that I worry could be sort of in that ideal trip. That 3 post position in this race just seems like Baru is going to get everything that it wants. You know, you're going to see the 1's going to go, the 2's going to take back. So the 3 is going to get the option. What do I do? Do I tuck into the garden spot, kind of right in that pocket trip? Or do I sit just off the flank, stay uncovered all the way through, sit sort of the 2 path as Graceful Kitten goes? If Graceful Kitten doesn't break, Baru can take the rail if it wants. So I think that's an interesting one, and one that if I had another spot on this ticket, the 3 would be jumping in there as well. So a little bit longer tonight, but we went over 2 full cards. I hope that you find great success with these picks tomorrow at Gulfstream and Aqueduct, or today, if that's when you're watching. Thank you for your continued support of T3 Handicapping. Again, if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe so that you get notified whenever we pop online here. As always, thank you for your support, and cash those tickets.